Knocked down, bested, battered, and bruised. Now missing a leader, a voice. Circumstances are dim for now. But this isn't over. As the dust settles, we rise. Picking up the pieces and turning the page. Welcoming a new challenge as time ticks forward. Because the journey doesn't stop when obstacles get in the way. It's only just the beginning. The time for resilience is now.
Cooper gives us the ability to keep playing. I can tell you right now, we're not changing a bunch of plays. We just got to execute better on Sundays. That's the outlook.
Two 0-1 playoff teams, one team destined for detriment. The other will right the ship at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. It's week 2 of the NFL season as we welcome you in to Pregame Live from the Star in Frisco. It's the Dallas Cowboys and the Cincinnati Bengals. Hello, everybody, and welcome in. For the next hour, we preview this week 2 matchup between two teams with high expectations but low results in week 1 of the season. Here with Barry Church, Isaiah Stanback, Nate Newton, a trio of former Cowboys. I'm Kyle Yeomans. And gentlemen, that's exactly what both of these teams are staring at. 0-2, right in the face. One team will leave at 0-2, of course, barring a tie. That can happen in the NFL. But we're going to pretend that it doesn't happen that way because both of these teams want to leave with a win. So, Barry, who will it be? Will it be the comeback Cowboys or is it the bounce-back Bengals?
Look, I hope it's the Cowboys. But, look, I'm going to need a better performance out of this team than they showed last week. And I'm looking at the offense specifically because, look at it, mate. 10 carries for Ezekiel Elliott last week. To me, that's criminal. You know, I need to see him between that 18 to 25 carry per game mark. And hopefully they hit that this week. Because, look, not only will, a great rushing attack help take pressure off of Cooper Rush, but it'll help your defense immensely. So to me, get the ball to Zeke, feed the man.
I'm not against you on this one, BC, and I agree. I hope that the Dallas Cowboys come out with a victory because they are playing a team that showed exactly who they are last year, AFC champions. These guys went to the Super Bowl. They had a terrible week 1, so these guys will be coming in a little angry this game, and they have some dudes on defense and offense. To Barry's point, Dallas is going to have to bring their A game, and they have to rush their way to a victory.
Man, this is all about the offensive line. They played the 5 guys that finished the game last are starting this week. They've had a great week of work, and they're going to be okay. And believe me, man, Zeke will get his feed.
So there is a little bit of adversity. Of course, no Dak Prescott. You have Cooper Rush starting. No Connor McGovern. No Jaron Kearse. I mean, there were a rash of injuries. But, Nate, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You have to have that next man up mentality that's spoken about every week in the NFL. But this week, it really reigns true for the Cowboys.
Oh, definitely. You can't worry about where Dak is hanging out at. You can't worry about, the guys that outbash him. You got to get into the rotation, do your job. And you know what? I hate to quote another coach. Bill Belichick says, do your job. And I'm challenging the Cowboys to do their job.
Nate is absolutely correct. DYJ is old philosophy over there in the old New England. But here in Dallas, these guys are going to have to step up and make some doggone plays. Cooper Rush, we have a lot of weight on your shoulders today, young man, but you're going to have to carry that. You have to bear that burden because the running game is going to need to be on point. Your passing game is going to need to be on point. And guess what? Oh, your defense, they got to make plays too.
You guys are outstandingly right. I mean, look, it comes down to this. It's the next man up. Offensively, defensively, these guys need to step up if they want to start this, or if they want to get a win this season. So to me, defensively, you got to carry this team. Offensively, lean on your ground game, and good things will happen.
Last year, 7 teams started the season 0-2, and despite it being a 17-game season, adding another chance for those teams to get back in the mix, none of them made the playoffs. So there's some intensity, a little bit of desperation. Dan Quinn knows that as well, and you heard from him earlier in the week, not only talking about the desperation from Dallas, but also from Cincinnati and the weapons that they have.
Should be 2 pretty pissed off teams, so it should make for some fun as we're going through it. And, my early impressions, I saw how talented, obviously, the quarterback was. Just throw for 70%, this many touchdowns, this many yards. I think Chase, and his ability, his run after the catch, his strength, the catching radius, that speaks for itself. And Boyd's, inside in the slot, and Higgins, the size to go. So all those from the passing weapon side, I felt like we were just talking about that last week. So that's kind of the fun part, and a good, strong runner with Mixon to go. So scheme-wise, it's different from what they've had. They've don't do the same things as Tampa, but from a skill standpoint, I would say there's a lot of carryover from the stylistic of players and how they can feature guys like that.
So Cincinnati has some weapons, but Dallas is without their main one for the 13th time in 3 years. The Dallas Cowboys will be without Dak Prescott. The previously indestructible Dak has seen a security breach in his durability. It started in 2019, but was able to play through a shoulder injury that he sustained in the first quarter against the Rams. Didn't miss any time, but that was the start of the injuries for Dak Prescott. Then the big one struck in 2020, an ankle fracture that forced him to miss the rest of the season. 11 games piling up. Then the Cowboys moved on to Andy Dalton, moved on to Garrett Gilbert. Even Ben DiNucci saw time that season in 2020 as the Cowboys had a 6-9 record. Then last year, when he tried to make the return to training camp, he had to sit out because of a separate shoulder injury than the first one he sustained in 2019. Missed most of camp and really didn't get a chance to get into a rhythm prior to the start of the 2021 season. This was followed by a calf strain in the New England game that kept him out over the bye week, and then he missed the game against the Minnesota Vikings 1 week later. And then last Sunday, a right thumb injury. How long will Dak Prescott be out? That is the question, because for a quarterback and the right thumb having to have surgery earlier this week, it's definitely a big-time question mark on the Cowboys offense. Back here with Isaiah Stanback. And Isaiah, you played quarterback, you played wide receiver, you played tight end, you did it all. You also had a number of injuries, unfortunately, throughout your career. How concerned should Dallas be for a quarterback like Dak Prescott, franchise quarterback, a leader on your team, but these compounding injuries year after year?
It sucks. I'm just going to say that straight off the bat. It sucks. It's not something that you want to have to deal with, but it's a part of the game. You think about Dak, he has 69 starts before he started sustaining these injuries, right? He's been 5-7, all right, without Dak Prescott. He's only missed 12 games since 2020, so it's not something that's necessarily reoccurring. These are different injuries. These are real football injuries. These aren't Tyron Smith, I'm getting older, my game's starting to deteriorate type of things. Obviously, he's out for the next little bit with a thumb. Any quarterback who's ever played any kind of football knows that, you're always susceptible to hitting a helmet, hitting a hand. That's why they wear the red jerseys in practice to keep guys away from them. So I think that Cowboys Nation obviously should be concerned about their backup quarterback situation, but in terms of his durability, I don't see it as a problem.
And of course, the timeline even shrinking down from the initial thought, Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, and even the training staff talking about that by not putting him onto the injured reserve list. But with Dak Prescott specifically, you mentioned it. I mean, it's a freak injury. He didn't even think when he had hit it that it was anything more than a jammed thumb. He just thought he had hit the helmet or hit the hand of Shaq Barrett and he was going to pop it back into place. But how significant is a thumb injury for a quarterback trying to throw a football?
It's major. I mean, because that's the one finger that you really can't live without in terms of as a quarterback. That's the only finger that's on that side of the ball in terms of securing the grip. So that is obviously very important. I'm sure that with this training staff and the doctors that they have, he'll be back within the time span that they believe he will be within his next 4 weeks or so. But as long as he can get back healthy and get that thing tuned up, he'll be able to play heads up, 7-up all day long.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, thumbs up for that. How about that? Now, 4 games is the thought process. It could stretch to 6 depending on the rehab and trying to get back into game shape. But Dak Prescott out for at least next month, it seems like, at the quarterback position, which means the eyes now shift to Cooper Rush, who tries to repeat some of the success he had in 2021.
I think we'd be forgetting that Cooper Rush won us a game last year. Cooper Rush is going to win us some more games this year.
Time's expired. The Cowboys and Cooper Rush have won this game. That's a moment for a dad. That for a wife, for a mom, for all of them. Wow. Cooper Rush.
Coopy's been here for a long time, and we have a lot of trust and faith in him, and we just got to go out there and figure out to get a win. We've been to a game, without Dak. And Coop, he got out there, he commanded that offense. And so, I mean, we all got a lot of confidence in Coop, and I think, last year has a lot to do with that, with just him stepping in and playing the way he did play last year in Minnesota.
Coop's been here a long time. He's a very smart guy, knows exactly what's going on. But there's always kind of that, I wonder how he'll do in a game. And I think he kind of showed that last year in the Minnesota game, came in, did a great job, got a win. And so I think everyone's got all the confidence in the world in him. I know Dak's got all the confidence in the world in him.
Dallas is 5-7 without Dak Prescott in the fold, but they are 1-0 with Cooper Rush as a starting quarterback in the NFL. Back here with Barry Church and Isaiah Stanback. And most of his stat line in his career came in Week 8 against the Minnesota Vikings, where he had 325 yards passing. He has had a couple appearances since then, but this will be his second start. So, Isaiah, I turn to you. How can Dallas help out Cooper Rush on the offensive side of the football?
They need to have an effective running game and be committed to having a balanced offensive attack as possible. If these guys are able to establish the run, and it opens up the playbook for him. And I know most people want to see the playbook kind of shrink a little bit, but if they're able to run the ball effectively and consistently, now all of a sudden you can have play action. Now you can get these DBs off of their heels a little bit and be able to do some things that you want to do in terms of moving the chains.
Yeah, Isaiah, you're 100% right. Look, it's simple to me. You've got to lean on your ground game. Feature Ezekiel Elliott out there. Let Tony Pollard get busy out there as well. It'll take some of the pressure off of your backup quarterback, Cooper Rush, who's only making his second career start. And not only will an efficient ground game, help take the pressure off, but it'll help you win time of possession. And when you win time of possession, that means your defense is resting, getting fresh, and getting ready to take care of business when it comes back on the field in that dangerous Cincinnati offense.
So it's never ideal losing a starting quarterback. Dak Prescott not available, but life goes on. You have to make an impact. And Barry, when you look at Cooper Rush, there's so much confidence in this building around him. Why should there be confidence in him and his skill set that he brings to the table?
Because he's done it before. I mean, when he was thrown out there last year, he was thrown into the fire. I get it. It was a one-game situation, but you're in prime time. You're going against the Minnesota Vikings, and he was out there and he performed well. Threw the ball 41 times for over 300 yards. So to me, he's done it before. He should have the confidence of his coaching staff and his players to go out there and execute the game plan, and I believe he will.
He knows the system. He's been around. These guys know him. When he steps in the huddle, there's no question marks. These offensive linemen aren't looking sideways like, is this guy possible? Is he capable? He knows exactly what he's doing out there. The problem comes now that these other teams, Cincinnati Bengals in particular, they have film study on him. They know what he's done in the past now. It's a little different when you're this kind of sneak attack. Now we're going to see how he prepares for a game that when this team is really ready for him to show up.
And just like what Barry was just talking about, last year he was able to do it against Minnesota, and he threw for 325 yards. If he throws for over 300 today, he'd be just the sixth quarterback in NFL history to do so, 300 plus yards in his first two starts. And there's a couple names on that list like Justin Herbert, Kyler Murray that are in that mix that are very impressive. Now, Cooper Rush, learning from that Minnesota game, going to take some of those lessons into the second start of his career.
Yeah, it's big. It was a big moment to be able to get out there and, live action. I'll draw on that. I'll draw on the other night, getting those snaps and all our practice reps. And preseason games do matter. At least you're out there in game situations, running the show. So it's not like it's totally something new, but I'm looking forward to it.
Is there a rhythm to it, though? I mean, it was a one-off last year, but this year it might be multiple games. Is it gradual? Does it take a lot of snaps for you to find the rhythm?
I think the rhythm comes with the guys you're playing with. Obviously, when you're the two, you're not throwing those guys. You're not running the huddle. But being around here for a few years, I've know the guys. They know me. I think that's a huge help, and that continuity will just continue to grow.
What's Dak like during this week for you and helping you with preparation?
It's good. I saw him today. He's around at practice. He's the leader of our team. It's always great to have him around.
Does he give you tips, or is he trying not? Do you go to him to ask questions or does anything about that dynamic change because you're in the room together anyway?
Yeah, I mean, not a lot of changes. You're still, talking ball with each other, and he'll help you probably with things down the road, running the group and things like that. Maybe things he did with these guys that you want to come in, make it the same for them, and so it all runs smoothly.
So Cooper Rush talking ball with Dak Prescott, and we get to talk some ball with our fifth member of our crew, Rob Phillips, out at AT&T Stadium as we get ready for kickoff between the Dallas Cowboys and the Cincinnati Bengals. Rob, welcome into Pregame Live. What's the feeling like down there on the field? It's been a long week for the Cowboys. Are they happy to be right back into it?
Yeah, I think there's excitement, Kyle. I think it's just an opportunity to put week one behind them and try to go get a win, like you said, and maybe do it a little bit differently offensively than they did Sunday. And I think you guys talked about it right before I came on. I mean, they're going to have to do some things maybe differently, maybe a little more conservatively. That's what Mike McCarthy hinted at on Friday to try to help Cooper Rush. You don't have Dak Prescott. Maybe you got to think about offensively how you attack Cincinnati and maybe play to your defense, because so far the strength of this football team has been the defense going back to training camp.
Let's talk about what that defense is facing in Cincinnati's weapons. Joe Burrow, of course, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. They've got weapons all over the field. How does Dan Quinn's defense look to slow them down here in week 2?
It's a great question. Not many teams have. I mean, I think it's arguably the best wide receiving core in the NFL. I think, and Isaiah and Barry can speak to this, it starts with your pressure up front, not necessarily on the back end. You think about Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, even some of the guys in the middle trying to crunch things down for Joe Burrow and make life difficult on him. He got pressured a lot last season. Cincinnati, I believe, has 4 new starters on their offensive line, including 1 rookie at left guard, Volson. So they are susceptible. They have shown they're susceptible to pressure. Now, there's nobody better than Micah Parsons to do that. I mean, arguably the Cowboys, if there's something they can hang their hat on, they're going into this game with arguably the best football player on the field on their side. So I think it's that pressure, and you're going to have to ask another all-pro player, Trayvon Diggs, whether he's following Jamar Chase or whether it's just playing sides, those opportunities to win those matchups and have good coverage and take advantage of opportunities down the field. If Joe's going to throw it up, have to go get it. Didn't have any takeaways in week 1. That's something the Cowboys defense does still hang their hat on, though.
Rob P, man, you're looking amazing out there as always, brother. But let's dive into this defensive side of the football one more time. I heard you talk about how you're not sure if Diggs is going to shadow Chase or whether that's the case or not. But to you, who do you think is going to be the X factor defensively to help slow down this explosive Cincinnati offense?
Well, I mentioned Micah, Barry, just because he's got a chance to wreck the game. He's that kind of player. But I do think it does go back to the corners holding their side of the ball once the Cowboys hopefully get the pass rush going, and that's Anthony Brown and that's Jordan Lewis there as well. And it's not an easy matchup because Jamar Chase is obviously so dynamic. They've got Boyd, guys who can make the plays, possession type guys, and T. Higgins is a guy with his size is going to challenge the Cowboys in terms of his ability in the red zone and on third down. So I do think for the DBs, that's a huge challenge. It can be aided, though, by the fact that if Joe doesn't have as much time, especially that middle pressure. Isaiah talks about this a lot. If you've got your big guys in front, Bohanna, Osa, Gallimore, not allowing him to step up in the pocket because he's not the most laterally mobile guy, that's going to be the key as well.
All right, Mr. Rob P., you covered the defense. Now we're going to flip things over to the offensive side of the ball. A lot of question marks regarding Cooper Rush and his ability to step into this fold now with Cincinnati obviously knowing that he's coming into this game. How is Kellen Moore going to address this offense in terms of their running game? 5.2 yards per carry last week for Zeke, but only 10 carries. Does he plan to be more effective and more consistent with the running game against this Cincinnati Bengals defensive attack?
Well, I think that's something you would expect. I mean, I think that's what Zeke Elliott wants, and he said that in a way in terms of, he's a leader on this team. He wants to help the football team. He wants more touches on offense. That's clear. I think that's got to be the role. I think Barry nailed it in terms of not only providing balance for Cooper Rush, but shortening the game and playing to your defense, winning that time of possession. We'll see if it happens. Mike McCarthy talked on Friday about maybe being a little smarter with the offensive game plan. I don't think that was a criticism on Kellen Moore as much as the way the context of that was we don't have Dak Prescott in the football game. When he's in the game, we can be a little bit more aggressive down the field. And make no mistake, they've got to make plays down the field. You don't score points in this league without chunk plays on offense. You guys know that very well from playing in the NFL. So CeeDee Lamb's got to be involved in there. But in terms of maybe a little more conservative, getting into better down and distances. When you're 3 of 15 on third down like you were in week 1, that's where the running game has to come into play and get you into some second and third and short type situations and play to that. Third and long is it's not a good recipe for Cooper Rush in his second NFL start.
Phillips joining us from the sideline at AT&T Stadium. We'll check back in with him and the sideline crew out there here in just a little bit. But he did have a segue there for our next topic of conversation, and it's been one that has bubbled throughout Cowboys Nation over the last 3 years, and it's play calling. Mike McCarthy even had to address it earlier in the week on how Kellen Moore expects to grow as an offensive coordinator and how Mike McCarthy could maybe push that a little bit.
I make sure Kellen, knows that I'm there, and we're going to take a lap today through the call sheet, maybe a little longer than we normally do. So I mean, those types of things. So the most important thing is not to overreact, and I just want him to feel that from me. And hey, so I got to do a better job. We all got to do a better job. We understand that after week one, but he's in year 3 now. So I've seen him grow in all 5 areas that I feel that are important to being a coordinator, and so I have great confidence in him for Sunday. But at the end of the day, Kellen and the offensive staff have been working on this since April. Long longer in April, but working with the players since April. So, we just got to trust what we build on our menu, and you got to adjust when you have change in lineup, and we definitely are working through that, and want to make sure we're helping, but maybe not being as conservative as you'd like to be. And let's be honest. I mean, in Kellen's time as a coordinator, he's been able to play very, very aggressive. But we're in a phase right now that we gotta be a little smarter in certain situations. So I mean, that's all part of growing as a play caller.
So going all the way back to 2020, it's been a question mark. Now, winning solves a lot of problems, but at times last season, and of course for sure in 2020, play calling was critiqued. So Isaiah, what does the play calling need to look like today when you have a backup quarterback at the helm in order to help this offense be successful and get back on track?
They need 2 things. They need check with me's, right? Check with me's is when the offensive coordinator gives the quarterback a play and he has a decision whether to have a run play called or a pass play called, and he's able to make that change at the line of scrimmage by giving his offensive guys some signals. And then the second thing is he needs to simplify these offensive schemes in terms of the passing game. 1, 2, 3 reads, pick which side, keep a single high coverage beater on one side, to 2 high coverage beater on the other side, go from 1 all the way down to your 3rd read, get the ball out your hand, live to see another down.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, look, I don't think the play calling needs to change drastically. I thought, Cooper Rush has a similar skill set to where he's able to work within this offense, same as Dak Prescott. We saw that last year as he went out in Minnesota and performed well. I just think the mentality of the play calls need to be changed a lot. Instead of relying on the pass to move the chains out there, I think we need to rely more on that run. Let that set up your play action. Let that set up your chunk plays out there, especially after your running back was averaging 5 yards a carry last week.
So it's basically the same thing. Don't oversimplify, but also don't overcomplicate, but just don't go away from what's working. That's what I'm hearing from you guys.
Exactly.
Last week you had 10 carries, 52 yards with Ezekiel Elliott, but you went away from it in the 3rd and the 4th quarter, even though it was a close game. Is that the difference? It's just staying consistent, Barry?
I think you need to stay consistent. I mean, we saw last week, for me, there was no reason why they should have went away from the run. I mean, that game was always intact. And like you said, our running back was averaging 5 yards a carry. Why go away from that? You got to stay consistent with the ground game, and I hope it starts today.
I'm with you. I just want to see him run the ball. I've been calling for this for some time now. I'm just hoping that Kellen Moore fights that urge to get out of that, throwing the ball all the time. Allow for your guys, whatever's working, go with it, right? If it's not broke, don't try to fix it. Tyler Biadasz, need to lean on him heavily. He needs to have the best game of his life, not only in the run blocking, but in terms of his communication as well.
You can say the same thing for Tyler Smith at the left tackle spot as he gets his 2nd career start out there. He'll be next to Matt Farniok, who is expected to have his 1st career start on the left side of that offensive line. So what does the rookie say about changing offensive schemes? Do they agree with Barry about not slowing things down too much for Cooper Rush and this entire offense?
I mean, absolutely not. We're just playing football. Regardless of who's back there, Dak or Cooper, they're both great QBs. I still got to do my job. Everybody on the line, all 11 people have to do their job. So, my approach doesn't change. I'm going to play fast. I'm going to play physical. I'm going to communicate and be smart about it.
You dominated physically in college at Tulsa, and it seemed pretty consistent at the NFL level. Was that pleasing for you just to see that part of your game is translated? I
mean, that's definitely cool for sure. I knew coming in, we're all here for a reason. We're all in this building for a reason. Rent ain't free. We pay in blood, sweat, and tears every day. So, just keep getting better because, this is a week-to-week thing. You're going to encounter somebody, bigger and better, every single day. You go against the best every day. So, being prepared is just big for me.
How valuable is this week for you to have gotten that start under your belt, and now you have all this film from which to learn and just be able to practice and then build off of it and stack weeks together?
I mean, it's invaluable for sure. We only got a certain amount of time before a game each week. We only got a certain amount of reps, and so just keying in on every single rep, keying in on the small things. Polishing and refining everything week to week. Because the same way I'm watching tape, those guys who we go against every Sunday are watching tape as well. So just being ready.
So last week for Tyler Smith in his first career game, it was against, Vita Vea, it was against Shaq Barrett. That's not necessarily the case anymore. It's going up against Trey Hendrickson, who's had 27 sacks over the last 2 years. And Sam Hubbard, who's been great on that Cincinnati defense over the last couple of years as well. Back with Nate Newton here in the Legends set as we talk through this matchup for this offensive line. These are the guys they're going against. Hendrickson, who's 34 sacks, most of that coming over the last 3 seasons. And then you've got Hubbard, who's done it for a consistent period of time. What's the difference this week compared to last week for this Cowboys offensive line?
Last week they did a lot of games, a lot of stunts, a lot of twists, and guys couldn't pass them out. Boom, boom, I passed it off to you. They couldn't do that. This week here, these guys stay more at home. Hendrickson and Hubbard, they stay more at home, and they play. The left side belongs to, who's over Tyler? Hubbard.
Yeah. Yeah, you got Hubbard, you got Farniok right there too.
Right, but you got the I'm trying to think of
Hendrickson.
Hendrickson. Yeah, he'll be over there. He's the guy that's leading it in sacks, and that is who I want to concentrate on. Is Tyler Smith. He did a nice job. What he got to understand is he can't overset and let a guy come to the inside. That's how Dak got his hand hurt. You got to run a guy around. If he can run that guy around, he'll be okay.
What about Matt Farniok? Because we're taking a look at some of his practice highlights, and he's had a lot of reps at that number 1 left guard spot this week after having to come in for the injured Connor McGovern. Do you think a week under his belt allows him to be more comfortable at that spot?
Oh, definitely. I mean, all you got to do is just, he's a guy that you power block with. You come around, what I mean by that is you pull him a lot. You don't just let him man up. He's not strong like that. You don't let him just get in a position where he can get bull. You have to get him going in a zone run. That means reaching to the outside or cutting people off. That's where he's best at. Get him into the screen game. Get him into things where he don't have to just muscle up with a guy.
What did he do well last week that built your confidence in him?
Just getting reps. This is what it's all about. I've been saying this since training camp. Give these guys reps. This is the first time in a long time we've had 5 guys during the season work together, and that's the key to this.
Now, when you look at Hendrickson going up against this offensive line, 6'4", 270 pounds. I mean, he's had those numbers put up there over the last couple of years. He's going up against the left side of that offensive line that has 1 combined career start, and that's for Tyler Smith. Yes. Matt Farniok has not started in his NFL career just yet. How does that change in offense for you? Does it change it from a quarterback standpoint, running game? Do you stay away from that side? Where do you switch your offensive thinking when you have a guy so good in Hendrickson up against so much inexperience?
We heard Isaiah talk with the check with Mees. Maybe you want to check some of the runs the other way, but you can't hide from the pass. Because if you don't stay ahead of the chains, you're going to have to deal with this beast. So you can't hide from the pass. But during the runs, you probably can get away from. And like I said about these 2 guys, Hubbard and Hendrickson, they are stout and they play disciplined football. We just have to man up and do our jobs and play clean and keep a pocket clean.
That's huge, especially with a backup quarterback, Cooper Rush back there. He needs time to find their playmakers. Those playmakers last week, CeeDee Lamb most notably, 11 targets, only 2 receptions. That's the least amount of receptions by a wide receiver in the NFL with over 10 targets since 2018. And he talked about it earlier this week. He's got to step up without Dak Prescott. That offensive line can help him out. But how does CeeDee Lamb think that things need to go for him and get better here in week 2?
I feel like in a situation that we're in, we always have to step up. Us, the receiver room, I feel like I had to step up. And then now losing QB1, the situation, it doesn't change. The opportunity is much bigger, and then we got to play for our brothers. Obviously, we lost a lot of guys, and then we're going to get them back in the back half of the season. So until then, we got to step up, play the brand of ball that we know how to play. And I got the utmost confidence in Coach McCarthy and Kellen to get us done.
Is there a sense of holding down the fort?
CeeDee, he's not new here. He's been here a while. He's not a new quarterback coming to the team. Can you talk about the continuity and the fact that you guys know what he can do and he knows what you can do, and y'all familiar with him?
Yeah, most definitely. Having Coop is not as bad. Just understanding, like you said, we have the experience of playing in the game with him. We know how he maneuver. We know what he likes. And just kind of throwing him in there again is just like, here we go again, And I say that with the most positivity, and I can't wait for my man to go out there and show up.
So CeeDee Lamb knows it. He's got to be better. 2 receptions for a guy who's supposed to step up and be wide receiver 1 in this offense is not enough. Back here with Barry Church and Isaiah Stanback. Isaiah, I know you've been very critical on CeeDee Lamb throughout the offseason. Of course, even last week with the performance that they had on the offensive side of the football. How does he right the ship this week and turn things around?
He has to be more effective. I mean, that's just about as clear and as broad as I could be at the same time. 16% reception rate. It doesn't matter how many times you get the ball thrown your way. 16% is just not going to get it done. Kellen Moore and him need to be buzz buddies this week. They need to figure out a way to get him the ball in his hands. I don't care the most effective way, whether that's motions, whether that's shifts, whether that's pick routes. They need to get him to the middle of the field with high precision passes to gain his confidence. Because guess what, fella? You are number one. Now you just got to show it.
Yeah, he is number one. And when it comes to becoming a more impactful player, like you said, I think it falls on CeeDee Lamb. I mean, look, this team did give him 11 targets, last week. So to me, if he wants to be that number one, he has to create more separation from the defensive backs out there. So it starts with him to become a more impactful player out there. Now, as far as for better looks out there on the field, Kellen Moore can definitely do a better job of that, giving him more pre-snap motions, giving him more bunch sets with other wide receivers so the defense can't really pinpoint exactly where he is and which two defenders can double team him. So it relies on, to me, Kellen Moore and also CeeDee Lamb. They both got to step up in this one.
And in some of the conversations I had with the coaching staff this week, they told me they're going to try and get CeeDee Lamb the football early and often, but how do they do that without forcing things? That's the biggest question mark right now. Felt like last week they forced it to CeeDee Lamb. How do they do it effectively?
Well, they got to get the ball to him early and often, like you just mentioned. I mean, whether that's smoke screens, it doesn't have to be this big developing long routes out there. It could be a couple quick slants. It could be a smoke screen. It could even be a reverse that we saw Julio Jones running last week. So just get the ball in his hands early and often. Let the confidence build from there, and I'm sure he'll take over from there.
I think it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. Work the middle of the field. I don't think you want to force it on the reverses and things of that nature, quick screens, because you can really get hurt in that regard. CeeDee Lamb goes out there, you try to force him the ball, all of a sudden Cincinnati comes out there and makes some big hits, and now his confidence level starts going down, and now you start looking around and say, who's going to make the plays for me now? Work the middle, clear some things out, clear out these zones. They like to run zone coverage. Clear those guys out and allow for him to get 5-yard, 6-yard passes, and then try to get some yak yardage.
It's been since week 8 of last year that CeeDee Lamb has had a 100-yard receiving output performance. Cooper Rush was the starting quarterback in that game. So keep that in mind. Last time that CeeDee Lamb eclipsed that 100-yard mark, Rush was throwing him the football. But even despite that, as Dallas looks to get CeeDee Lamb going, can Dalton Schultz continue to be a security blanket, Isaiah? Because from a tight end position, he's done quite well. 4 of the 5 receptions in 4 of his last 5 games. So he has been the safety net for Dak Prescott. Can he do the same for Cooper Rush?
Absolutely. I said it last week. He is the ultimate security blanket. He's the big snuggie that you throw over. It doesn't matter on a cold night, a warm night. He is that guy for all quarterbacks. That's the reason why they gave him the franchise tag, and he's working on that big boy contract. He is a guy that is a sure thing. He's going to work that 10 to 12 yard zone. He's going to be able to beat guys man-to-man coverage. He's an easy, high-precision pass guy that you can always look to without having to try to throw the ball into these doggone hash marks.
Yeah, he needs to be that security blanket coming this week because to me, to get this offense passing-wise to be productive, you're going to have to take what the defense gives you. And if that's a little 12-yard hook over the ball or a 5-yard out to Dalton Schultz, go ahead and take it because to me, look, the most important thing for this offense they need to do is to keep the ball out of harm's way and away from Joe Burrow. And the best way to do that is to get your security blanket involved. Dalton Schultz should have a big afternoon.
Now, I'm going to turn it on you. How can he be more than a security blanket? How can he be an impact player in this offense?
He's going to have to beat the one-on-one coverage out there. We understand that they're going to double team CeeDee Lamb out there, and the rest of these guys are going to have an opportunity with one-on-one coverage. Dalton Schultz, it's up to you to be a dynamic enough tight end to be able to consistently beat that one-on-one coverage.
And I'm going to say with his hand in the ground. He has to be a dog when it comes to the offensive line in terms of his blocking. He needs to work in unison with these tackles. He needs to be able to work with these wing sets and with the other tight ends, Ferguson and whoever else might want to step in there. They need to be able to kill it on the run game and stop Hubbard, stop Hendrickson, some of these other guys, so that Zeke can do what he needs to do and keep averaging 5.2 yards per carry.
There we go. Cincinnati's got a great secondary, and their safety unit is very strong. But how does a tight end being an impact player help against the safety unit and kind of put stress on them?
Well, you got to use your size. When we're talking about the passing game, they do have a great set of safeties back there in Bell and Jesse Bates as well, but they're kind of undersized safeties. So I feel like when it comes to the pass game, I feel like Schultz can use his size. Let him get those 50-50 balls out there. Let him go out there at wide receiver, especially if it's one-on-one, and let him take advantage of the linebackers or safeties that walk out there on him. I believe he can do that.
Barry loved going up against these big tight ends. He loved the size advantage. He loved going physical on physical out of the secondary and working toward it. Dalton Schultz talked about it as well because CeeDee Lamb's facing these double teams. There are going to have to be changes in terms of the pass catchers moving into week 2.
I mean, that's just I mean, that's how guys are going to play. That's how people in the league play. You go back and watch the Super Bowl that these guys played in. What they do, they doubled Cooper Kupp. And I mean, that's the NFL. They're going to try to take away your best guy, and they're going to try to, create in their mind great matchups for the rest. And, we're trying to do the same. We're trying to create good matchups for us. I mean, like I said, the only thing that we can do better is just execute. Just execute when we get those one-on-one opportunities. And, obviously I think that's top to bottom, in the protection to the route running, into getting into third and manageables again.
Schematically, anything changed with Cooper instead of Dak?
Not to my knowledge. You have to talk to Kellen on that one. That'll be a good question for him. I just work here, man.
So Dalton Schultz jokingly saying that's a Kellen Moore question, but there are plenty of questions still to be answered for this Cowboys team as we enter into week 2. Back with Barry Church here for Pregame Live. And Barry, we're seeing a reunion of a couple former Cowboys, couple former starters in La'el Collins and Chidobe Awuzie making their return to Dallas. And you played 7 seasons with the Cowboys, then made your return a couple years later with Jacksonville. What are the emotions like for guys, not only as the returners, but as really the Cowboys, seeing them on the other side of the line of scrimmage?
Look, this is going to be an extremely hyped game. Emotions are going to be running on their sleeves. They're going to be all out there. And I can understand why, because these are 2 guys that played all their rookie contract, and then La'el got a second contract with this team. So these guys have played a long time here for the Dallas Cowboys. And at one point, they were considered the core of this team. So to me, coming into this game, it's going to be a hyped matchup for these 2 individuals. Most importantly, I know wins and losses mean a lot, but to these 2 guys, that's not going to be on the forefront. To me, it's going to be about proving the coaches and the upper management wrong. That, you know what, you guys let us go for whatever reason, whether it was Awuzie getting free agency or La'el Collins being released. They're going to try to prove to these coaches and upper management that they were wrong in that choice. So to me, it doesn't come down to wins and losses. It comes down to winning their individual matchups out there and proving a point to this coaching staff.
So what you're saying is there's a little bit of discontent, a little bit of animosity from the La'el Collins and Chidobe side, but is that an advantage or a disadvantage? Because emotions do play a role, but is it a good one or a bad one for guys returning?
I think it's a disadvantage because when I came in here, emotions were running extremely high for myself. I played here 7 years. I knew a lot of the guys that were still on the team out there. So I came in, I let the emotions get the better of me, and I didn't have one of my best games. The Cowboys, they tore our secondary apart, ended up kind of being a downfall for our season that year. So to me, these guys, they got to play emotionally sound, be calm about it, but understand this is going to be an extremely hyped matchup.
Hey, you still had 5 tackles in that game. Now, it was 40-7, and the Cowboys
you just had to bring that up.
I had to bring up the stat. I'm sorry. Hey, I'm
Oh.
just doing my job here. But yeah, he still had 5 tackles. He played well, but you were in a secondary that was tested all the way throughout. This is an offensive line that's going to get tested. La'el Collins even saying earlier in the week he had talked to Zach Martin, and they had that connection back and forth. But on the other side, how does Dallas take advantage of Chidobe Awuzie, seeing that really the receiving game never got going for the Cowboys?
Well, Chido's a guy that loves the press coverage. He loved that doing here in Dallas, and he loves to do it in Cincinnati as well. So to me, to take advantage of Chido out there, you got to have a great release off the line of scrimmage. And that starts with CD, that starts with all these other guys at wide receiver, but they got to get a good release off the ball and give a room for Cooper Rush to go out there and make a completion.
And of course, the ground game kind of setting up the passing attack could certainly help as well. The Cowboys really held in check last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and went away from the run. Here's what Ezekiel Elliott had to say earlier in the week about trying to stick with it and make sure that the ground game can help out the rest of the offense.
I think it's important, period, to establish the run game and run the football and get that going. I think just, over as an offense, we're a better football team when we run the ball. And I think we ran the ball efficiently last Sunday. I'm looking forward to committing to it this week.
How's Zeke's spirits?
My spirits are up there, man. Ready for this week. Doing what we got to do to get Coop ready. Just got to protect him, establish that run game, and get things going.
You had several productive runs on Sunday. It was your first time really getting out there in that way since your knee. How are you feeling, and what did you think of that?
I feel good. I'm ready to go.
You had 10 carries on Sunday, 8 of them were for at least 5 yards. What do you think that says about this run game that you guys are being that efficient consistently?
Like I said, the efficiency is there. We just got to commit to it. We got to, get the runs. We got to, wear on that defense. We got to lean on them.
16 carries combined from the backfield last week against Tampa Bay. Ezekiel Elliott, 5.2 yards per carry, as he really was getting that chunk yardage early. It wasn't the big play. His longest run was only 7 yards, but they were moving the ball efficiently. Nate Newton, Isaiah Stanback, I turn to you guys to try and figure this out. How much do they rely on the run game again this week, Nate? Because it looked like they needed it last week.
You know what? You can rely on it a lot, but it's how you run it. Is it going to be the long handle runs where you swing it out to the back of the backfield, or it's going to be screens to help, soften this thing? They got Hill and Reed in the middle, two big old 300-pound guys. So they got to be careful how they run it. They got to use their offensive line, do some pulls, do some outside zone plays. Yes, they need to get this ball to Zeke, and they need to give it to him often, but it's how you do it.
I agree with you, Nate, but it's going to be difficult because the Cincinnati defense did not allow a lot of yards last week. These guys against a solid Pittsburgh Steelers only allowed 75 yards on the ground on 22 carries. So it's not like you just give it to Zeke and you're just going to be effective. We're playing with a backup left guard. We're playing with our backup left tackle. So you're going to have to figure out a way, Kellen Moore, to scheme things up, to give your offensive linemen confidence, and obviously to give Zeke an opportunity to have some real opportunities at beating these guys down.
Yeah, that Cincinnati front seven last week holding Najee Harris to minimal yardage. They really didn't get anything going on the ground. Benny Snell, nobody out of that Pittsburgh backfield had any success, but Cincinnati had some success running the football with Joe Mixon, and they did so consistently. He toted the rock 27 times last week, and of course his career has since exploded over the last couple seasons. When he's healthy, he is productive, and he ended up last week with 145 scrimmage yards. He had 86 on the ground, so 27 carries. They're going to wear down this defense, Nate. How does this Joe Mixon-led backfield bring a challenge to the Cowboys defense?
Looking at last week, they didn't hurt us up the middle. They hurt us on the edges. So we asked for Armstrong and we asked for D-Law. Set the edge, run it back into them big mules in the middle. Let them handle this thing. And that way you'll be okay because this kid can catch it coming out of the backfield. He can run it to the middle, to the outside. But if you tackle well and keep it all bottled up in the middle, this guy you have a chance to stop it.
Yeah, I'm going to say that our interior defensive linemen have to play downhill. I think last week some of those gaps and those seams that you saw pop up and made things available for Leonard Fournette is because our interior defensive linemen were jumping around blocks. Yes. They were trying to guess, right? They were rolling the dice, and unfortunately, they were crapping out. And when you crap out on the defensive line position, offensive linemen have leverage. And when they have leverage, they're able to create the Red Seas right there. So you don't want to do that this week. You want to have these guys two-gap things, drive them back, and obviously muddy things up for Mixon and not to allow them to get out clean.
So if you had to circle one position group to step up, it would be the interior defensive lineman?
For this game particularly, absolutely.
What about you, Nate?
I'm going with the two outside guys. I mean, they was jumping around a little bit, but those two outside guys gave up over 70 yards outside rushing last week.
Yeah, and Ezekiel Elliott and company looking to try and get things going on their end while Joe Mixon on the other side. I mean, edge rushers, interior defensive linemen, it's all got to figure things out. Where is Micah Parsons going to play this week, though? Because he did some work throughout the week at edge. He may step back and be a linebacker. There's plenty of spots for him to go. But what does he think of himself as a leader in that locker room? No matter where he plays, where does he think he needs to step up in the mind game heading into week 2?
I don't know if there's like a miscommunication, but as my starting quarterback went down and we lost, I just didn't think it was appropriate for me to be on the show at that point. I think it's time, even myself, I need to step up and be the leader. And it shouldn't be on TV, it should be in this locker room, and this is where my focus should be right now.
Dak being out for a period, is there any additional sense of obligation where we have to do even more, or can you not let that creep in?
You just can't let that creep in. It's one of the things you got to control what you control. Dak's been out before against Minnesota last year, and we still held our weight. We just got to do what we got to do and hold to them to a minimum points as possible and make sure they get the ball as many times in the game and get as many 3-outs as we can and get turnovers. That's our job, so nothing can fall off. There can't be a drop-off. We got to continue to get better and just continue to keep trying to get this first one.
So it's only year number 2 of Micah Parsons being in that locker room, but he already sees, without Dak Prescott in the picture, there's a leadership role for him. So how much does this affect really his mind game and his preparation heading into this matchup with Cincinnati?
Like you said, he's already been a leader here, so I don't really think it affects his mindset going in. He's going to be the same line that he's always been. But offensively, I think it gives guys like Schultz, CeeDee Lamb, some of those guys an opportunity to step up and be that vocal leader. Because, look, I know Dak Prescott's going to be out there. He's going to be cheering his teammates on the sideline. But unless you're in the trenches with those guys, sometimes it goes one ear and out the other. So we need guys that are in the trenches to be those leaders, and it gives opportunity for those guys to step up.
I don't think Micah has to be the leader. I know a lot of people are putting their pressure on him. He's a young player, but regardless of that, they got veterans on this defense, right? And you have Dan Quinn to be able to lead these guys and get these guys rolling. Micah Parsons just has to show up and play. He always talks about how he's the lion, right? The lions don't do a lot of the hunting. Okay, the lions just eat. Okay, so all you need to do is to let the rest of your wolf pack go out there and handle their business, and you just make your plays. Don't put that extra pressure on yourself.
I agree 100%. Just line up, be Michael Parsons, but I will ask that you come from a linebacker position because I don't need you getting wiped out this week. So, yeah, he don't need to do anything. Just let him eat. Yes, sir.
Nate, when you were playing, and let's say Troy Aikman goes out, who stepped into a leadership role during your time? And would it be different from what you saw this year?
Oh, no. It's the coach. It's the quarterback.
Okay.
You just step up. Rodney Peete. You know, we had Steve Berline. We even had Jason Garrett. When they stepped in there, they took command of the huddle. Coach Turner knew how they played and how good they was at what they did, and he allowed them to be that. And that's how we do it from an offensive standpoint. You're right, Church. Man, if Dak don't show up for the next 2 weeks, that's cool. It's all about Cooper Rush.
He's got to step into that leadership role. Parsons certainly has a leadership role on the defensive side of the football, but like Isaiah is saying, don't put too much pressure on yourself to get it done. Now, locked in, that's not a bad thing, especially when it's Micah Parsons. He had 2 sacks last week, 13 last year. Let's see what he can do against the Cincinnati offense that was sacked 7 times. Joe Burrow, he knows a little bit of something about youth stepping up in a leadership role. Both he and Jamar Chase did that as AFC champions last year. Here's what he had to say about the leadership from Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs on the Cowboys side of things.
Yeah, I mean, usually you have a pass rusher and he lines up on one side of the ball, and you can kind of have a plan for him, but he rushes outside, he rushes inside, he rushes right, he rushes left. They blitz him from the linebacker position, so you always got to be aware of where he's at.
Last time you played Trayvon Diggs, you had a big day in college. What stands out to you about how much he's improved since when you saw him play at Alabama to now? And do you think he's one of the premier cornerbacks in the NFL?
Yeah, he makes a lot of plays. Obviously, with however many interceptions he had last year, it felt like a million. He's not afraid to take chances. He's going to jump routes, and you got to be aware of who you're throwing a 50-50 ball to when he's covering him, because he's going to go make a play. I mean, I think he's a former receiver at some point in his career, so you got to be aware of that.
Joe Burrow coming off a career worst 5 turnovers in their Week 1 loss against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he is 3-1 whenever throwing 2 interceptions, and then following up that week, he has won 3 of his 4 contests. But throughout 27 games, he's been fantastic outside of the turnover category. Those 23 interceptions, most of those coming in the last 2 seasons. That's tied for most with 18 interceptions since the start of the 2021 season. Barry, if you're this Cowboys defense, how do you create a similar stat line that Pittsburgh did last week, 7 sacks, 5 turnovers, in order to get after Burrow?
Well, you take a page out of their book. If you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers and what they were able to do, they were able to get pressure with their front 4. That allowed the rest of that secondary, the rest of that second level linebacker core to back off into coverage and make things a lot murkier than what Joe Burrow wanted to do. Now, I understand we don't have a TJ Watt on this squad, but we do got something very similar, and that's Micah Parsons. So hopefully this front 4 can get after Joe Burrow, make things very interesting for him back there, and hopefully this secondary can take advantage and intercept the ball a lot, please.
Well, Joe Burrow was confused last week, Kyle. And the reason why he was confused is because they diversified their looks. He mentioned about their front 4 being able to get pressure, but in the secondary, what they were doing were using 3 safety sets. They were inverting their cover 2 looks. Cornerbacks were doing trap techniques. They were doing a lot of things on the back end that were disguising what they were eventually going to do, and that caused him to hesitate. That caused him to hold the ball, and when you hold on to your ball, your front 4 can go eat.
I can't tell you what's happening on that backside like D2 cats do, but I tell you what, if you put that pressure, them 7 sacks, they had a little bit to do with that. So if you put pressure up front and get those sacks going, yeah, he's going to give you a few.
He's thrown some interceptions even without the sacks as well. 15 of those 18 interceptions over the last 2 seasons have come without pressure coming up there, because there's maybe a conversation on whether to or not to bring the pressure against Joe Burrow, because he's going to give you opportunities, in this Cowboys defense going to look to try and take advantage. But how do you try and slow down these weapons on the other side of the football as well? Because they have got the triple threat going. Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, all 3 of these guys put up fantastic numbers in 2021. It was the Cowboys who, of course, had the triple threat at receiver with Michael Gallup, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb. They've got something very similar. And Barry, when you look on the other side of the football, how do you limit the big plays from these 3?
Look, this makes me nervous because, like you said, this big 3 right here that they got going on, I mean, they're outstanding. You got a possession, you got a speed, and you got an all-around playmaker in Chase out there. So to me, what this Cowboys secondary has got to do, keep everything in front of you. Do not let these guys get behind you. I mean, I understand, Joe Burrow, he'll dink and dunk you for a little bit there, but he'll get impatient a little bit, and he'll want to go for that deep ball. Secondary, keep everything in front of you. I understand it might not be what you want to do. I know Diggs wants to gamble out there, but you got to keep everything in front of you and make them go down the field the hard way.
but we're not in Las Vegas. We're in D-Town. So I'm going to need him to go ahead and play it safe. Last week, Joe Burrow, I think he learned his lesson in terms of holding on to the ball and wanting to always get the big play. You can believe that you're going to see a lot of these guys do a lot of more underneath routes, a lot more shorter, high precision passes. To his point, don't let these guys beat you, but you can't just sit back and let them get the ball either. You got to go up there and create some pressure, make it difficult on these guys.
Because he's going to try to get to Hayden Hurst. Is that just how it is?
Yeah, buddy.
They're going to try. That's the forgotten guy they're going to try to get to. But you know what? I'll do everything in my power to take Jamar Chase out of the game, because without him, then I'll let the other two guys beat me. I'm just being for real. Take Chase out of the game, and you'll have a chance to win this.
Do you see Trayvon Diggs shadowing Jamar Chase in that fact? Put your best corner on him?
You think he? I don't know, but I tell you what, if you do shatter him, don't take no chances. I don't want you to crap out like this man talking.
By the way, Trayvon Diggs and Jamar Chase did meet in college in that Alabama-LSU rivalry game back in 2019. Jamar Chase had the only receiving touchdown against Trayvon Diggs throughout the entire season for Diggs at Alabama. So keep that in mind. Chase has had some success against Trayvon Diggs, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun to see that Part 2 matchup working its way into the NFL. Speaking of a whole lot of fun, let's go back to AT&T Stadium, where Nick Eatman now catches up with Cowboys COO Stephen Jones.
Thank you, Kyle, and I'm here with Stephen Jones, Cowboys Chief Operating Officer. And Stephen, let's get right to it here. Obviously, a couple of teams 0-1. That second game of the year, this is not a hole you want to get into. I know it happened in '93 with Emmitt Smith, but that's not a good recipe to go 0-2. How does the Cowboys turn this around this week?
Well, I just think we got to come out and execute and get in a rhythm on the offensive side of the ball. There's some things we can clean up defensively, I think, to be even better. But offensively, especially with Cooper in here now too, not having Dak, I know he hates it that he's not going to be able to come back out here and have this game coming off that tough injury. But I'm convinced. We believe in the process. We think we had a really good offseason, a really good training camp leading up to the season. We just got to go out there and, we ran the ball for the most part. I think we were all positive plays when we did run the ball. But, what really hurt us were the third and shorts. And, and that's where you got to execute. You get that first down, then you start getting in a rhythm. You can play with some tempo and make some things happen. And that's what we have to do. We put a lot of work into this season, and we feel good about our football team. We believe in it, and I'm going to be very surprised if we don't come out here and play really good football.
Roster spots are sacred around here, obviously, but you wanted to keep Dak with one. Maybe if he comes back early, but also just to have him around Cooper Rush. How can he help Cooper Rush in practice and also in the games?
Well, I think the number one thing with Dak is that he might be able to come back. 4 games from now. And if he can get back one game earlier, then that's great. He's our franchise quarterback. But you're also right about one thing. He can be out there now on the field, participating in what he can do in terms of the hand. Obviously, it's not going to be probably in these first 10 days to 2 weeks. But, he's just such a good partner for Cooper, if you will. And, certainly helping him through the game plan. What it's going to be like out there. And, Cooper's proven he can do this. He stepped into a hostile environment in Minnesota last year. Tough place to play. Good football team. And led our team to a big win. So this team's got a lot of confidence in Cooper. And I think he'll come out here and play winning football for us.
All right, let's flip to this other side of the ball. Jaron Kearse not playing this game. I think we know Micah Parsons is going to get after it, and he can get after Joe Burrow the best he can. Who else are you looking to kind of step up there without your leading tackler from last year, Jaron Kearse, not playing in this game?
Well, first of all, he needs to step up. That's why we picked him, and he did in the preseason. He was making plays on the ball. He's got the same body type. As Kearse is. Yeah, I refer to Iz. Got it. I can't say his last name. Shame on me.
Israel McQuammer.
So I call him Iz.
There we go.
But anyway, he's got the same, body type as Kearse. I think he needs to step up. But some other guys that I think, when we looked up, we didn't get them enough plays. A guy like a Fowler, a guy like Sam Williams are going to get some opportunities with Basham being out today. Certainly, we need to get after Burrow. You don't want him to sit back there with a lot of time. And then, of course, Chase is one of the best receivers in the league. And, he's just very unique, very special. And, we're going to have our hands full with him. He seems to always get his, but we just got to go to work. And, Dan really felt like there was a lot of places we could clean a few things up in the running game. Mixon's a good back. It's going to be important to stop him. early and often in terms of the running game, but overall feel like our defense can do the job.
All right, we'll see if they can get that W. Stephen Jones, Cowboys Chief Operating Officer. We'll throw it back to Kyle and the crew.
Thank you so much, Nick. And, of course, Stephen Jones joining us here on Pregame Live every single week. And every week we also give our keys to the game. Barry Church, Isaiah Stanback, Nate Newton. I'm Kyle Yeomans, wrapping things up here as we get ready for the Cowboys and the Bengals. Barry, I'll start with you. Keys to the game. The Cowboys need a win today.
Yeah, they need a win, and to me, this is all about the defense. All right, we were talking about the defense being the strength of this team going into the season. They need to show that today. To me, make things uncomfortable for Joe Burrow back there. Whether it's your front four, whether you're blitzing people, make things uncomfortable for that man back there, and walk away with a +2 on the takeaway category. Get your offense the ball back, short fields, make things easier for Cooper Rush out there. But to me, this is all about the defense. You got to step up.
I'm on the Barry Church bandwagon. I need a +2, okay? I need to have 2 takeaways away from Burrow and the rest of those guys, and I need Cooper Rush. You can have 2 turnovers. Well, I give you 2 turnovers, but our defense needs to go grab 2 as well.
I'm going to ride with you guys, but from a different angle. It's how we run that ball. I'm concerned about that. Don't just try to power it up in our center and our guard. Our left guard is not that strong. We got to run trap plays. We got to run power plays. We got to long handle them with outside pass plays. I'm talking about to the back, coming out of the backfield. You got to do screens. This is how you run this ball. Zeke got to touch the ball 25 times minimum. I don't care if it's running or passing. Tony Pollard got to touch the ball at least 7 or 8 times running or passing. This is how we can win the game and help the defense be who they need to be.
So run the ball. Get a couple turnovers on defense. I'm going to add to that. I'm going to say you need a defensive touchdown today. I think you need to take it to the house defensively. I'll even add special teams into it. So like those fantasy points where you got defense/special teams, they need a touchdown. That's how the Cowboys get the job done. You got to force turnovers. You got to run the football effectively. Take the ball out of that Cincinnati offense's hands, and you're going to have a little bit of success. Of course, 3:25 kickoff on CBS. Jim Nance and Tony Romo are on the call, but that does it for us on Cowboys Pregame Live, presented by WinStar World Casino and Resort. For Barry Church, Isaiah Stanback, Nate Newton, our entire DallasCowboys.com crew, thanks for watching. Enjoy the game, everybody. It's the Cowboys and the Bengals, Week 2 of the NFL season.